indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are we ready for roll call?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Sisson? Here. Zumwalt? Here. Garrell?
Here.
Oh, you're here as pro tem. Huffman?
Here.
Hughes is not here. Garcia?
Here.
Holloway?
Here.
Kellenberger?
Here.
Recommendation for visitors and special guests, do we have any?
Let me double check. No, there's no one signed up.
So then we gotta call it Christie, that's what we got.
Christy Price.
Christie Christ, you're gonna give us your water or whatever for the,
Yeah.
Yeah, so we asked Christy with CMT to come this evening to give us some, water treatment plant project and sewer treatment plant project updates.
Do you want me to do the water budget stuff or do that later?
That'll be later.
Perfect. So my update on we'll start with water. So an update, we do have the RFP that's out currently for the contract operations. I've actually been in town all day. We had open meetings for different vendors to come in and take walkthroughs of plant. We had 2 vendors that were here this morning, walked through and have actually had some correspondence with a couple others. There's a mandatory pre-bid on Monday, so we will know who all the interested parties are as of Monday. Getting a few questions, but so far so good on that. And I do anticipate a couple more that are gonna want to do the walkthrough. There was one vendor who, they were flying people in, so for the pre-bid meeting, so I said we'd accommodate and give them a walkthrough of the plant after that meeting. Then we continue to make good progress on all of our projects at the plant. A little bit of an update since the last time I was here. Both of the clarifiers have been cleaned out. One of the big projects we were doing was rehabilitation of their 3 filters at the plant that are comprised of sand and granular activated carbon. Those had not been rehabilitated in a while. That's underway currently. One of the filters is done. As you all know, you have a contract with a gentleman, Bill Brown, from my office that's been assisting with operations. He told me, it's like a week or 2 ago, that basically one of the days he was out there, I call it the effluent, the water after the clarifiers, actually had a turbidity that was below the finished water level. And as you all recall, we have had some problems with some excursions on it, turbidity. Basically the particles in the water, and basically at that point, not to say it's always that good, but on that particular day, following that first step of the process, it was clear enough to have gone out into the distribution system. So that's just the improvement that we see from actually getting those clarifiers cleaned out, getting the full treatment capacity of those. And then going through getting the filters rebuilt is just going to continue to make improvements. We do have a couple items that are on the agenda later. Once again, those are pieces and parts that were up from deferred maintenance of just trying to get other pieces of equipment completely up and functional. We just kind of sort of keep checking off boxes and going down the list of things that need to be renovated and replaced. But there is definitely substantial improvement with what we have going on at the plant. And as far as hopefully everyone's noticed the water quality being a lot better. Personally, I ate at Terrastown today and the water was very good. So anyway, and on an update, and hopefully everybody hears positive things from the staff out there. I think they're learning a ton. They have folks that are taking the time to actually teach them why they're out there, why they need to make changes to the plant, how different systems function, and also starting to give them the ability to do some troubleshooting instead of just always kind of sort of having been told, adjust this way, adjust that way. So I think they're getting a lot better understanding of what the plant does and what their role is. I actually talked to one of the operators this morning, and like the sense, it feels like to me anyway, the sense of pride in ownership that's going on out there is just leaps and bounds from where it was. So all those things are incredible positives to what's going on at the water plant. I guess a little bit of an update on my end. We are working on a project plan, which is the first step to getting SRF loan funding for a project at the water plant. I anticipate that being submitted by June 1st. And then the idea is to get in line for monies in 2027 to do those improvements. So probably starting the design third quarter of this year. So that's that one. Rolling into the wastewater. I know Adrian was here at the last meeting. So that plan has been approved. The goal is to get on intended use, which would start July 1st. And intended use means that IEPA has set aside funds for us. There's no guarantee of that, but that's our goal. And then that would mean we would be needing to bid the project in January, February of 27. So that's gonna be starting, and the goal here is Brianne will have a contract for the next meeting for us to get started on that design.
We do have to, begin the design before we can submit for the loan fund, so we do have to spend some. It would still be able to be rolled into the loan, but we do have to spend some in order to be eligible.
Correct, and you would get reimbursed for all of the engineering fees at your first disbursement, at the contractor disbursement. They don't start paying money until you have a contractor under contract. So, that's kind of my update. Any questions? Perfect. Wow, easy peasy. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we have some public participation. Their brush pickup will begin Monday, April the 13th, weather permitting. Pickup will begin in Ward 1 on Monday, April the 13th, and progress through each of the 4 wards accordingly. The citywide spring cleanup program begins Monday, April the 20th through April the 24th. They will begin in Ward 1, process through the wards accordingly, weather permitting. Friday, April the 24th will be approximately pickup day. Appliances pickup day. Thank you.
That was city report, and public participation, there was no one signed up, so.
And no appointments, so we'll move on to other business.
So we got a,
Yeah, could we get a motion to accept the public hearing minutes and the regular meeting minutes from the March 19th, 2026 meeting?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second? Hoffman? Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Holloway?
Aye.
Zumwalt?
Aye.
Garcia?
Aye.
Huffman?
Aye.
Kellenberger?
Aye.
Sisson?
Aye.
pass.
What's that?
I said it passed.
Okay, all right, next we need a motion to approve the expenditure report and payroll report for the current period.
I'll make a motion.
Huffman's first, do we have a second? Garcia second? Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call, Garcia?
Aye.
Sisson?
Aye.
Zumwalt?
Aye.
Huffman?
Aye.
Kellenberger?
Aye.
Holloway?
Aye.
On to new business, Robin Huffman.
I make a motion to approve Bud's paint service to complete a single broadcast resurface on the concrete floors in Bicentennial Campground and Equestrian Campground shower houses for an amount not to exceed $13,400.
Do we have a second? Okay, Sisson? Any discussion for this?
I mean, there really, this is just a safety issue, and I think this was supposed to have been done a few years back, and for some reason it was not. So, it had already passed once, but, so, and did Bud's give you time service on that, Heather?
You can start tomorrow.
Perfect.
All right, so roll call, Huffman?
Aye.
Kellenberger?
Aye.
Holloway? Garcia,
Aye.
Sisson,
Aye.
Zumwalt.
Water Department, Bob Garcia, please.
I make a motion to approve a resolution waiving competitive bidding procedures and authorizing the emergency expenditures for the Litchfield water treatment plant.
Do we have a second? Okay, Sisson, second. Any discussion on this? Anybody? Okay, we'll do roll call, Zumwalt. Huffman,
Aye.
Kellenberger,
Aye.
Holloway,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Sisson.
Economic Development, Ray Kellenberger, please.
I make a motion to approve a resolution approving and authorizing the mayor to execute an emergency roof repair grant agreement with Sharp Furniture Company Incorporated for 315 North State Street and other actions related thereto.
Can we get a second? Who's second? Oh, okay, Zumwalt second. Okay, any discussion? Okay, we'll do roll call, Garcia.
Aye.
Sisson.
Aye.
Zumwalt.
Aye.
Huffman.
Aye.
Kellenberger.
Aye.
Holloway.
Aye.
Tourism, Brett Holloway, please. Read that for me.
I make a motion to approve a resolution setting hourly wages for seasonal staff with the Litchfield Pickers Market.
Do we have a second? Okay, Zumwalt seconds. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. Are we hiring the same people back that we've had for the last several years?
I believe. the
Yes, we
majority
are.
returning.
We are. We've had, 3 people that have been there for about 3 or 4 years, but I'm bringing in 2 new ones. They kind of started last year, kind of part-time, just here and there, just to learn, because the older ones are gonna be leaving soon. So there's 5, but there won't be 5 there every day.
Any further discussion? We'll do roll call, Holloway.
Aye.
Zumwalt.
Aye.
Huffman.
Aye.
Sisson.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Kellenberger.
Aye.
Building and zoning, Sarah Zumwalt, please.
I make a motion to approve a resolution approving and authorizing a demolition agreement of a structure located at 115 East Corwin Street, PIN 10-33-334-008.
Can I get a second? Huffman, second. Any discussion for this one?
About time.
What's that? Oh, about time. Okay, gotcha. Okay, we'll go with roll call, Holloway.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Sisson.
Aye.
Zumwalt.
Aye.
Huffman.
Aye.
Kellenberger.
Aye.
Building and zoning, Sarah Zumwalt again, please.
I make a motion to approve a resolution approving and authorizing a demolition agreement for the demolition of a structure located at 843 South Montgomery, PIN 15-04-259-016.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Kellenberger seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, Garcia. Oh, did you have something?
I was just gonna ask Gary what kind of a time frame he thought it was gonna take to get the structures down.
By the time we get asbestos removal done and bids out for demolition, these 2 will probably be the end of May,
They'll be down around the end of May.
hopefully.
Okay, perfect.
Any further discussion? We'll do roll call, Garcia.
Aye.
Sisson.
Aye.
Zumwalt.
Aye.
Huffman.
Aye.
Kellenberger.
Aye.
Holloway.
Aye.
Finances, Sarah Zumwalt.
I make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2025 audit.
Do we have a second? Sisson? And then do we have discussion?
We do have Anne Marie, our finance consultant, here to just provide a brief summary.
Hi, so the, state statute just requires that the annual audited financial statements be presented to the council as well as acknowledged by the council at a meeting. We did receive an unqualified opinion, which means we have clean financial statements. We have all the recent standards that the GASB, or Governmental Accounting Standard Boards, has issued. They've all been factored into our audited financial statements this year, so we're completely up to date on that. We did receive a few management letter points that we have since addressed as well as we can. And we most likely will not have them again in this year's audit, which is going to be starting pretty soon.
questions, comments, discussion?
Is this the second year we've had the unqualified opinion, or the
Yes.
first? Second year, that's what I thought.
Any other discussion? I'll do roll call, Zumwalt,
Aye.
Sisson.
Aye.
Huffman,
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Kellenberger,
Aye.
Holloway.
Aye.
Finance again, Sarah Zumwalt.
I think she's gonna do that. Anne Marie, back door.
Oh, come on.
So Anne Marie is going to walk us through the budget, and then, we will pause, for each department head to give just a couple minute highlight of the projects that are going on within their department.
We don't approve the budget tonight, correct?
No, so on April 16th, there will be a public hearing followed by approval. The budget is available online for anyone wanting to take a look.
Thank you.
So that'll be the next page.
Okay, and it's under transparency, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And
Mhm.
people on our website, so, anybody listening, website transparency.
So you have the budget before you in the binder. I'm not gonna read through every page, I'm just gonna kind of touch on some highlights. Our process, it is a single year budget, we put prior year information in there just for comparative purposes, but we don't budget any more forward than the next year. We met with all the department heads and the council liaisons to put the budget together, to review the numbers, to review the projects, to talk through the revenues. So it was truly a team effort. We always take a very conservative approach to estimating revenues, so that we don't spend more than we end up putting in, so that's factored into this budget. We do put together kind of a total compensation document that shows the total compensation by employee for the fiscal year, and then that will end up going on the website after the board, the council approves the budget. As part of the process, we also updated the 5-year capital plan that we had put together as part of last year's budget process. And we'll continue to update that on an annual basis and roll it forward a year. The capital, I'm just gonna really quick, the capital in this budget is most likely going to change, and we'll be doing some budget amendments just based upon the improvements that are going on with the water and sewer facilities. But we have in here kind of what we know at this time. 2026 highlights where we think we're gonna end 2026. General fund is very healthy. We're projecting a fund balance of about 79% of recurring operating expenditures, which is very healthy, well over the council approved, minimum, so that's in great shape. Revenues in the general fund are fairly close to what we budgeted. There's a few line items that are above what was budgeted and a few that are below, but in total, they're fairly close. We are gonna close the sales tax fund. If you remember, as part of last year's budget process, we combined a bunch of funds, so we're kind of continuing that trend a little bit. We're gonna close the sales tax fund and combine it with the general fund. Sales tax really is a general revenue source, and it really does belong in your general fund supporting general operations. So this will just kind of
So
make it.
does that open it up for other uses by combining them?
No, I mean, it's really, sales tax really is a general revenue source. You can use it for any purpose that you choose to use it
So why
for.
not combine it?
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
just cleaner accounting for less funds. We were continuously doing transfers to whatever fund needed the sales tax, so now we won't have to do those transfers.
It makes for a much cleaner, easier audit, the less funds that you have, so. So we are combining that fund. I talked a little bit about some of the line items that were over budget. Income tax, interest income was a little bit higher than budgeted. We had a little bit more cash in the bank than we thought we were going to have. Sales tax was over about $164,000. And then if you look at the general fund expenditures, in total, the general fund was about $340,000 under the amount budgeted, which is very good. I mean, we're not overspending. Kind of going to the next page, jumping to the lake operations fund. The fund balance is kind of shrinking in that fund. It seems that repetitively year after year, the fund is operating at a loss where the revenues are not necessarily covering the overall expenditures. Part of the loss in 2026 is there was the campground expansion, the first kind of phase of it for $300,000 that didn't have like a dedicated revenue source, so we just used fund balance from the lake operations fund. Your TIF funds are healthy. They all have fund balances in them. TIF 1 is doing really well. We're able to, issue a surplus every year as well as fund a number of development agreements.
What is the expiration on that?
I can share those as we go through each
Okay.
of them. Yep.
Business District Fund also is doing very well, $1.6 million in fund balance at the end of 2026. Those revenues can be used for any purpose within the, business district, within the city. Jumping over to the next page, this is a fund balance analysis. It really just shows the fund balance at the end of 26 for each of your funds, the budgeted revenues for 27, budgeted expenditures for 27, and then your fund balance at the end of 2027. You've got, if you look at that, there is a significant difference between the 27 million and the 20, but we do have a very robust capital plan for 2027, which is really the reason for that drawdown. And that's why you build reserves sometimes in your funds, is to be able to do those large projects when they're needed. I'm gonna kind of summarize through this. General fund's still doing really well after our, proposed 2027 budget, 62.5 of fund balance, which is once again very healthy, way over the council approved minimum. Expenditures in the general fund are, capital expenditures are about 2.9 million, which is significantly more than what we usually budget in the general fund. We have some significant purchases, the streets maintenance shed, a pumper tanker truck for the fire department, a couple of dump trucks for snow equipment. We have in the budget to, get a loan for the streets maintenance shed of $1.4 million. So the loan proceeds are also reflected as revenue in the general fund. If for some reason that project doesn't happen, we obviously will take out the loan. And just interrupt me if you guys have any questions, I'm going to talk fast. I think last year, as part of the budget process, we did recommend that we update our general fund balance policy. We didn't necessarily get to doing that, so I think that's something that we should still do. Just kind of make it a little bit stronger, a little bit more detailed, just to kind of be conservative and make sure that we always maintain a really healthy fund balance in our general fund. Ambulance funds has a fund balance that is also kind of declining year to year. We do set up an uncollectible reserve during the audit process because we do get a lot of patient fees that we never do collect, so our revenue never necessarily comes through. So it's just something that I think we need to watch as years go on. And I said there too, I think just because of the volatility of the revenues, we really should set some kind of a fund balance policy. Lake Operations Fund, I kind of mentioned it when I was talking about 2026. Once again, revenues are well under the operating expenditures of the Lake Operations Fund, so it's something that we're gonna have to look at before we do the 2028 fiscal year budget. There's still a small fund balance there, but that won't last another budget cycle, so we'll have to kind of look at that over the next year. Motor fuel tax fund has some fund balance in it. The only spending we have budgeted is $250,000. I think we call it chip and something, I call it road resurfacing. I can't remember, chip and oil or something like that. So it's for just road resurfacing projects that we use NFT funds to pay for. Tourism fund has a healthy fund balance. The activities of tourism are in that fund. A grants fund, this is a fund that we're also gonna close out once we've spent all the grant proceeds that are still in there. There are some grant proceeds that we seem to have received in prior years that we haven't necessarily spent down. So we spent part of them in 2026, then we'll spend the remainder in 27, then that fund will be closed also. And then all grants that the city receives will go into the fund that they actually apply to. Once again, I talked about TIP funds, very healthy, business district, very healthy. Long-term economic development fund, this is another fund that, we are going to be closing out once the fund balance is gone. This year, it was used to fund a number of TIP 4 expenditures. So this fund will, be gone probably during the 2028 budget process. Capital Improvement Fund has about $2 million of fund balance left after all the projects that were budgeted for 27, which is always good in case there's some emergency repair that's needed, some large, building structure or something like that that needs to be done. At least you have that fund balance there to support a budget amendment. Water fund, I'm not really gonna touch on it much. You do have some fund balance there. We are, in the middle of a rate study that will be coming forward to the council in, I think, May. So most likely there'll be a number of amendments to the water fund as well as the sewer fund to have a final amended budget for those two funds. I think for both of those funds, we really need to establish a fund balance policy. Haven't done it yet, I think we're waiting for the rate study, waiting for the results of that, waiting to see what our capital spending is really going to be over the next couple of years, and then we'll set a fund balance for that fund, set a policy for that fund. The next page is really just kind of give you a lot of detail on our revenues and expenditures, and I'm gonna go through them all. You can kind of see on page 9, that's pretty much our revenue structure and the different types of revenue that we receive. Page 10 just kind of shows you a history of those. Probably the most volatile of those categories is the intergovernmental, because that category includes grants, and we only receive a grant once, and then we won't receive it again, so it fluctuates more from year to year. Page 11 and 12 just kind of show you a summary of our expenditures by type. In this fiscal year budget, our largest component is capital outlay. Usually it's personal services, but we have a very large, like I said, capital budget plan for 2027. And then, page 12 just kind of shows you the history of those types for the last couple of years. Jump into page 14, this is just a section, just kind of describes our personnel costs. Provides you with a breakdown of where our personnel lies, what union they're in, or whether they're non-union. Talks about the positions that we have, the unions that we have. Page 15 and 16, just really show you compensation by department or by fund, and then as well as our compensation kind of by component. The insurance component, or I'm sorry, the pension component, this is just the general fund, I'm sorry. Yeah, the pension component is the IMRF, and then the salaries and wages and all of this is just the general fund. The next couple pages, 17, 18, and then the schedule behind that show you our capital spending. Our capital program for 2017 is about $19.5 million. Like I said, very large compared to prior years. On page 18, it kind of shows you the components of where we're spending the money, and then the graph below that shows you where the money's coming from to pay for that. Page 19 kind of shows you some history, and then the following, page 20 and 21, is actually the detail of our capital improvement program for 5 years. The first column is what's included in the 2027 budget. 22 just gives you kind of an idea of the debt that we have outstanding today and where we will be at the end of 2027. It looks like the one water and then the lake subdivision note is rolling off in 2029. The ambulance loan, the last payment is in the 2027 budget, and then the other two debts out there are maturing in the 2030s. The next page kind of jumps to the general fund. And then just kind of gives you detail of the revenue in the general fund. Page 26 and 27 give you a line item revenue in the general fund, so it shows you every line item that's in the general fund for a total revenue in 2027 of about $9.3 million. And then page 28 shows you the spending, kind of by component. And then we get into kind of the departmental budgets, which I think are all gonna be presented by the departments.
So first is administration. So this includes economic development expenses as well. We did combine those budgets last year. So you'll see that last year this one increased a bit. That's because we consolidated funds. We still do have our long-term economic development fund in existence. This is just for the economic development department. Salaries include the city administrator, executive assistant, mayor, alderman, and treasurer. This year's travel and conventions include 3 participants in the IML conference, and then also my attendance at one of the ILCMA conferences. The employee development is for the employee engagement committee initiatives, and the employee volunteer and recognition is for the volunteer reception, employee Christmas cards, sending flowers, that sort of thing. Professional fees include labor and employment expenses, and the entire city attorney contract is is paid out of administration rather than separating it out for each department. Each department does budget a small amount, for any legal fees outside of the contract. Any questions on administration? Do you wanna give then Anne Marie a brief overview of the finance budget?
So the finance budget includes, 4 personnel.
Oh, sorry, it looks like,
Yeah,
it looks like
the book's kind of in order of the department number,
yeah.
so it kind of,
So it looks like we're going streets next,
Yeah.
is that correct? Yeah.
yeah.
So Bill, would you like to give an overview for streets?
Or big ticket item, and Marie has stated on our street department is hopefully getting the, funds to build a new maintenance shed. Currently, 2 of our sheds down there are not heated and they have dirt floors and, some of our equipment that are being stored in there is unfortunately rusting and we have to do extra maintenance to keep it up but if we get this new building, we can get all that stuff in a controlled environment and prolong the life of our equipment. We also plan to, have some storage in there to keep our repair parts and keep a proper inventory of our repair parts. That way, if we have a water leak in 2 o'clock in the morning, we know that we should have the proper repair parts to be able to fix it and get the water back running and in service right away, so. There was some equipment, that we are putting in for, hopefully that'll go through. There's some, policy and procedures that we hope to get going this year, and which will better, go with our equipment that we will be working with, and we hope to get more things done around the city and, have a proper maintenance program of taking care of our ditches and exercising our water valves and such, so. Any questions for?
Yeah, 2 major things that I wanna make sure. One is, we've got a plan in place to do a better job on the streets this year with oil and chipping.
Yeah, we're working with engineers on that right now. We've done some test spots. We did one on Lee, we did one on Parish Street, and we did one on Hendricks by, the, Madison Park. If you drive by there, you can see our patches that we've done, and as long as they hold up properly in the next several weeks, that's probably what you'll see on all of our streets.
I just wanna make sure what happened last time, we don't repeat that.
Right.
It's a disaster. And then the second thing is, I've been talking with the city administrator about this for some time, but the folks in my ward on North Monroe, there's a cul-de-sac, subdivision, I don't know what you would classify it as, but back there that had a ton of problems with those streets back there.
On North Monroe?
Correct.
Yeah.
And this has been an ongoing issue for years and years and years, and I'm hoping we can finally address it this year.
Right.
We have $750,000 budgeted for that project.
That's fantastic, perfect. Do we have any idea on a time, like, just a rough idea on time frame that project's gonna be completed?
If we get the budget goes through, we can, after May 1st, we can, start soliciting bids to get that going, and
Perfect.
hopefully by end of June or July, we can start construction.
Awesome. That's all I have.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
So next up is fire. Chief is for the pumper tanker that was ordered in 2024. We expect that to be delivered this year. They're thinking maybe, around as early as December. So we'll be very excited to get that truck. Building improvements, ongoing repairs. The most expensive things in the routine budget are, training. We have some training for a fire apparatus engineer, turnout gear, and then general repairs, always costly for fire trucks, but nothing outside of the norm this year. Any questions on fire? Next is police. Rob?
Okay, the, most expensive line item in the police budget is, their salaries. This includes the police chief, a lieutenant, police sergeants, police patrol officers, and a civilian coordinator. On that note, Officer Gorman's salary is fully reimbursed by the Secretary of State, and Officer Ostendorf's salary is reimbursed at the rate of 50% from the school district. Dispatch services is another big expense, haven't really gone up much. The services are paid to Montgomery County, and save the city the cost of having our own, as you guys know, you went through that years ago. Hospital and life insurance is another big expense, covers all police department personnel. Canine expense includes the purchase of a new dog and all the training involved. The downstate police pension, covers all police department employees with the exception of the police chief and the civilian coordinator. And the repairs and maintenance to police building, there's a line item for that, which is gonna include upgrades to the building such as evidence storage, a new back door for the back of the building, and, the renovation of an office for the civilian coordinator. Any questions?
SRO, we got that back to full-time.
Yes, so next council meeting, we'll be bringing forward a contract. The school district's gonna be great to work with us on restoring that back to full-time. They will continue to pay for the part-time position, and then we will, pick up the additional to make that full-time. And then we will be hiring an officer to fill that spot of the SRO since it's moving back to full-time, that is accounted for in the budget.
This is police.
Any questions
Yeah.
for Rob?
Just looking at the police budget, it looks like we've almost doubled in 3 years. I mean, it's showing 24 at 1.7, and then in 27, 3.3, at the very bottom line, last page.
Okay,
Total expenditures, general fund police.
yeah.
Actual 2024 is showing like 1.7, and if you scroll over, it's at fiscal year 2027 budget, 3.3, so we've almost doubled in 3 years.
Mhm.
So, just to,
We've
I
had,
can answer some of it, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know one of the things we had talked about in the meetings was we've had, and I don't know how much of an impact this has, but we've had a lot of people retire recently. I think was one thing
Yes.
that was gonna increase, pensions is gonna be one. I know it's a big increase, the K-9,
I'd say,
the K-9 officer was another reason that's gonna require a lot of training. I know we talked about upping, our training in general, because there just was not enough money being spent on training that was required. So I think, at least from my memory from the discussions, it was, quite a bit of increases in equipment, vehicles, upkeep, all those sort of things were big increases, but.
And I think if you kind of look, so that the salaries line, there's about 400,000, I'm thinking there maybe, I'm not sure what your employee count was in 2024, and now in 2027, so you're at 1 million versus 1.4 million, so there
Well-
may be additional employees, but there's also just the
I think,
salary increases
I think
each
what's
year.
really throwing it off is the 2024 actual for pension is
That's
only
what I was
showing
going there next.
$210, yeah.
Yeah, so I think
Um,
in the past, you did not record the police and fire
Yeah.
pension in the department.
So that's an
And now
extra
we do.
500,000.
okay, so the 2024 number is really a false number.
Yes.
Add 500,000 to it.
And then, we've had a lot of retirees
spending
Yeah.
here.
And then you've also got 231 in vehicle purchases, and we didn't have any capital in 2024, so. I mean, I think that makes up a little bit over $1 million of the
Yeah,
difference.
so 2024, if we recorded the pension, would have probably been more like 2.2,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we had in that meeting, we had a question about a bill that we were paying, it was just outrageous, did we get any answers on that? I forget exactly what the name of it
What
was,
meeting? Sorry.
our budget meeting for the police department, we talked about,
On the police.
Oh, boy. A bill that was outrageous.
yeah, like, I don't know if it was IT, or if it was the phones.
So we did talk about, so,
Managed
yeah,
services.
so we got our IT contracts and we were able to split those up. And that's something that if the council wants to go out for bid for next year, we can absolutely do that. We're
Would that be
looking at
your-
ways to save on cost there. I know the firewalls for the police department, and I did look into this, you had to jog my memory on what it was, yeah. The police department has their own firewalls protection system, so that's allocated to the PD, but typically not, like the other departments share one firewall and PD has their own, so that's an added big expense.
I just know we were blown away by that number, and
Yes.
if it's your recommendation to go back out to the bidding process, we need to do that then.
The police department, I think, is
That's something, yeah, we can look at that for next fiscal year.
4 times as high.
Any additional questions?
But I think the pension is a part of that.
Thank
one,
you.
too.
Alright, thanks.
Thanks, chief.
Now we have, finance.
Think of the police department.
Finance.
Oh, fine, building and grounds,
It's building here.
Building and
Oh,
grounds.
yeah, building and grounds, yep, you're right, I skipped a page. Gary, did you want to do building and grounds?
I can do that,
Okay, perfect.
what I know of it. Mainly, I kinda have a good idea of what's going on here in City Hall and Carnegie, a lot of the other buildings, I'm not real involved with, right off the top. City Hall, we've had some of the windows replaced, if you've noticed from, last year's budget. We've got a few more to do, and I still am in line to have the tuck pointing, recalking, cleaning of stone, the masonry work all brought up to date. And then we've got a little bit of a plumbing issue that we need to look at as well.
And those will all be in TIF, so not coming out of general fund building and grounds.
Okay. So overall, like I said, we've got money for preventive maintenance as much as anything, and inspections on the building,
Yep,
the different
mowing
things that come along.
services, lighting, yeah.
Yeah. So there's no big expenditure that I'm aware of on the other. So, anything I'm missing, Brian?
My question would be, why such a huge, what's going on in the Carnegie building that? such a
Well, we're
huge-
still in the middle of this grant with the remodeling of the interior, plus the lot across the street, we've still got some improvements to do there to come in to where the grant expect is. So, I don't know if any of you know, but there has been a hiccup with the HVAC. We've got that under repair at this point, and it's not gonna cost us any more money, they're pretty well doubling what we put in there as we thought they would have to. But they engineered it, they put it in, and it's not working. So we're gonna go through another stage of replacing the HVAC in that. Mainly just the exterior units and adding a couple of interior units.
But that will not be
That will not
at
be a cost to the
city.
city whatsoever. We've gotten,
And then the other thing was the gas and electric, I mean, I know it's gone up, but is there, did we acquire some more property that we're paying gas and electric on, or do we really expect it to nearly triple?
So we expect it to be projected, I believe, at 138,000. I think the issue was prior to, 2026, we were budgeting it in various departments and we moved all of it to building and grounds. Yeah. One thing that we will do as a quarter one amendment is, we had 60,000 budgeted for potential demolition of the American Legion. We are working with the Park District to get that property into their hands. They have applied for Kilton funding to demolish that, which we're very excited about. And then they can, put some seating, a pavilion, or some park space in. So that would likely be a quarter one amendment. Any questions on the notes? Thanks, Steve. All right, now finance.
So you kind of see the salary lines fluctuated over the last couple of years, just due to a bunch of staffing changes that occurred in the department. Contractual services, same thing, it's kind of fluctuated with the outsourcing of kind of the financial management of the department. We've got our audit numbers in there for our annual audit. IT service, we've got the 42,000, which includes the, fees for Cassell, which is our financial management system. Other than that, there's not significant growth in this department over the last few years.
Okay, great. Building and zoning, you're back, Gary.
I'm back. That was quick. For a bad penny. Okay, so building and zoning, the salaries include myself, Bob Sneed is part-time, and Don partial part-time in our office. Get all the benefits that go with it. Uniform allowance will be split between Bob and I. We very seldom come anywhere close to using that money, but it's there if we need it. This shirt's from 2017 still, so that's how often we buy uniforms. Travel and conventions, Code Council, Southern Illinois Code Council has training periodically throughout the year, and, if it's a worthwhile training, I will go down there, and that's what the travel and conventions are about. Professional fees, it's legal, our demolition grant lets us do the asbestos and the demolition. They will take care of that, but we have to do the legal part of it within the city. So, and then periodically, if we've got a big project going on, we have plan review through an engineering firm, which is second look at everything to make sure that everything looks right. And then, services, that's, vehicle repair, just routine maintenance. IT services, there again, we have the same IT as everybody else. Every now and then, we have issues that he has to clean up. And we're also, our department's due for 3 new computers this year, so he's gonna have to set it up. I've got that all put in there as well. On the, services and demolition, this is to cover demolitions that are not covered by the grant funds. Mainly commercial, so we're covered if we come across a commercial property that needs to be taken down.
So that's something new that are we
No.
expecting something?
No,
Because,
so most of our, commercial demolitions are going to be in a TIF or business district, and that would be, our first choice funding. We did budget $350,000 because, that could be 2 commercial demolitions. So we wanted to budget something in case there are any that aren't within an incentive district.
Any emergencies that come up.
and it just wasn't that, the budgets before just weren't that forthcoming or projecting those issues, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We did have a fairly strong number in it last year.
Mhm.
And we didn't use it all, so we used very little of it. This year, we're gonna have to make up for some of it. We may
As
have some
we're
demolition.
really going forward with code enforcement and staying on that, we will have more demolitions and additional expenses.
Don't expect to spend that much, but better to have it and not use it.
Sure.
As I said, the computer expenses, we've got 3 new computers, all 3 of them in the office, so due to be changed out this year, so. Pretty simple.
Any questions for Gary? Okay, thank you. Do you wanna give an overview of the special revenue funds, or are we okay to jump in?
I mean, I could, I
Okay.
think I talked a little bit about them up front, just with the fund balance analysis, so the
Yeah.
following pages just include the budget for each of these funds. Ambulance funds, obviously, the fire department is split 20% fire, 80% ambulance, so that you see the numbers here. Ambulance fund has a property tax levy, and then the charges for services, which are the patient fees. Yeah, I don't really know all the details of what's in the
Yep.
ambulance fund budget.
I can do the ambulance fund budget, if we wanna start there. Okay, so ambulance fund, this one is at a deficit this year, it was passed at a deficit last year as well, so this is one that, we do have on our list to watch the trends and then see if we need to set some sort of fund balance policy. It can be due to varying factors like GEMT reimbursements, patient fees, that sort of thing. The call volume and the amount that we get per call is not always in our control. We do work with our collection agency to make sure that we have high collection rates, that's something that we will continue to do. Chief Pinnock has said that, the current company that we're with for collections does seem to be, doing a much better job than the last on collections, but that's something that we'll watch as well. They will be paying off the loan this year, for an ambulance, this will be the last year of that. Really, no expenditures, that are outside of their norm. I'm pulling up a detail sheet here. It looks like, yeah, the largest expenditures are, potentially 3 paramedic classes, restocking of consumable supplies, and then general repair to ambulances. Any questions? And I'll also note that, we did take the, we're not showing the pension on this one. We did move that out to try to help pay the fund balance, so that is one effort that we're making. We put it all into fire. Okay, Lake, Heather.
So I kind of typed out my little speech, cause I will chase rabbits otherwise, we don't have time for that. So, I just wanted to say, as I'm beginning my second year, but third season as a lake superintendent, I wanna say how much I truly enjoy and appreciate the opportunity to serve this community in this role. And I'm looking forward to continuing to build on the lake's history while working to grow to the level of potential that I see that it has and that others do as well. I'd like to take a few minutes to highlight what we've been doing, where we are currently, and then where we're heading with the lake operations as we move into this budget year. First, the new campground project has been in the works for several years, and I'm happy to say the work has begun, and we're expected to hopefully be finished by the end of next camping season. This has been a significant long-term investment, and once it's complete, it will position us to enhance our visitor experience and increase overnight stays and generate additional revenue moving forward. Looking ahead to the upcoming 2026 fiscal year 27, the lake runs in different seasons than fiscal years, so it's kind of difficult for me to kind of express that. But looking ahead to this upcoming season, we're hopeful to have more favorable weather. Unlike last year, which was 25 season fiscal year 26, and then we had a noticeable impact on our beach attendance and camping. We had a lot of rain in June. The beach was closed 21 days in June. When we're only open June and July, pretty much, that we take a big hit on attendance there. So the lake is very dependent on weather. And then with improved weather conditions and operations, we anticipate to rebound in daily use and related revenue. We're also placing a stronger emphasis on improving our sales and marketing efforts. That includes increased online presence through the new reservation system, which we kicked off last month, and it's going really good so far. We've had a few hiccups here and there, but we're working those out, and everybody's learning it. Better promotion of events and increased visibility of our amenities with a new ice and water machine and self-serve kayak kiosk, and then new additional, pieces to our Woodbit inflatable system, inflatable on the lake, which will be more intentional to attract both new and returning visitors. That being said, we do have some operational needs to address. One of the key items, if you'll notice in the budget, is a new maintenance shed. Our current facility is undersized and in dire need of repairs. Bill touched on this about the street department, but the maintenance shed we currently work out of has dirt floors and very inadequate air conditioning system, heating system. So our equipment does rust, and like he was talking about as well. And it's the only building that we have to store, with the exception of the, storage units that we got last year. So that is a structure that's needed, has been needed for a while. And then also so the 319 grant program, we have money set aside for that, to continue that for our shoreline restoration. And it's a really good funding source, a federal government funding source that helps us protect and preserve the long-term health of the lake. And then finally, we're proposing a 3-year plan. It's $100,000 to each year for the next 3 years to start replacing all the roofs on all the structures. It's something important to be a proactive, and help spread the cost over time and prevent more costly repairs in the future. It's important that we continue to identify and develop additional revenue sources, whether that's through expanding camping, the beach house, marina store amenities, and then partnerships with nonprofits like Embrace the Lake, because with a nonprofit, we would be able to get some funding and grants that we wouldn't be able to get otherwise, and offering new amenities to guests to be proactive in strengthening the lake's financial stability. So that is my speech. Any questions? As far as I will add, one of our biggest expense of salaries is me. We have 3 full-time maintenance, 1 full-time marina store clerk, and then 36 to 40 seasonal staff.
And then on the loan, we hope to do 1 general fund loan, and we would bid out the lake shed and the street shed at the same time, as well as having the campground expansion match funds roll into that. Okay, next, the sales tax fund, and Marie, do you?
So this is the fund, you'll see it's 0 for 2027, so this is the fund that we're gonna be, we're doing a transfer at the end of 2026 of that 3.1 million into the general fund, and then the sales tax revenues going forward will be budgeted in the general fund. So defense fund, small fund, we do levy a small property tax for this, minimal expenditures for, I think this is a repair of the sirens. And Chief, if you have anything you wanna add to the civil defense fund?
Yes, so the civil defense fund, I was actually questioned by 2 veterans 2 days ago. And they asked, with what's going on in the world today, is the city prepared if there would be an air raid? How would the town be notified? And my question is that the same as our tornado siren system? And then how would anybody in town know to set that off?
Okay, I don't know all the answers to that question. I'm gonna tell you up front. I would assume it would be the same system, that you don't have a separate civil defense emergency siren.
No, I don't believe we do.
As far as who sets it off and
Yeah, I
when
mean,
they
how
set
would
it off?
how would the town receive notification that there would be something, townspeople needed to be notified to take shelter?
So we have emergency action plans that get updated pretty often. Montgomery County EMA often takes the lead on these, so they may notify us that there was a threat of an air raid in the area, and then we would implement our emergency action plan as a city. So we would be very quick to get that out on our website, through the internet, on the radio, and then obviously later to follow in print. But we would treat it as an emergency situation.
And I apologize for not knowing exactly exactly
Oh,
the
that's
answer.
quite all right.
I haven't dug that deep just yet.
Need to clean the
That was,
files.
that was the first one, I mean,
Need to clean the
first time
files out of
somebody's
the
asked
basement, so we got a place to go.
Yeah.
Well, with the way the world is today, these are two older guys.
Motor fuels tax.
Motor fuel tax fund, this is the fund that receives our MFT dollars, our state shared revenue, the MFT, and then the MFT TRF, that's the additional 19 cents that the state put in place a number of years ago. And then the funds, the revenue from, in this fund is utilized for street improvements. You have to get IDOT approval to use MFT funds, so it's spent on projects that have been approved by the state. Healthy fund balance at the end of the year that we can use in future years for MFT related projects.
Tourism fund, Stacy.
Now we get to talk about, Christmas lights and fireworks, that's all heavy stuff. Pretty much nothing's really changed in mine, there's a few items I wanna talk about, and one is the Christmas lights. They are starting to look a little old, the ones that we have in Carnegie Park, they brought to my attention. So we did put $5,000 in there. $5,000 isn't gonna get you very much for the Christmas decorations of that type, but if we keep doing this every year, eventually we'll have a nice display out there, I think, so we can just pick and choose and add some new stuff. The other thing I wanted to address was the special events fund, you'll notice that it's gone up. But all we've really done is combine the special events, which is usually Pickers Market, with the fireworks and also the concert and murals fund, so it's just a combination of all those instead. And then the final thing is marketing. Last year, we had a marketing grant, and we had a very successful, marketing program that covered a diverse area of media outlets. The next step really is perfect to lead into digital advertising from that. So the plan is this year, we'll have the 18,000 for Great Rivers and Routes, which usually is 40,000, but we've changed that and come under the Montgomery County umbrella. A little under 11,000 for billboards. Print, we're still keeping at 4,100, and then we'll have about 16,000 in digital advertising, where we can do targeted marketing and go directly to where we wanna go. Then we'll have the analytics to know how that marketing is working. And that's pretty much it.
And I will note, one of the, council suggestions for the budget to me was to, continue each year adding to the 4th of July lake
Yes,
celebration.
and that was
So
part of
we
the
did
special
increase that
events.
budget a little bit, to try for some more entertainment bands, that's.
Yes, we're shooting for a more regional band this year. Haven't quite got one yet, but I'm still working on it.
Any questions for Stacy?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next page is the grants fund, I did touch on this one earlier, this fund will end up being closed out once the main grant funds are spent, and then the grants that we receive in the future will be reflected in the fund where the function is happening. We've got about $247,000 left, we didn't budget anything in this fund for 2027, because we're not quite sure how it would be spent. As we move forward and determine what grant proceeds are available and what they can be spent on, we'll have to do budget amendments.
And you're gonna completely empty it, or you're gonna transfer what's left to the general fund?
So I think we have to be careful with it because it is a
Yeah.
grant fund, and we have to make sure that we spend the money on what it was intended for. So there's still a little bit of research that we need to do.
Anything any grant that has a specific purpose, we will, we'll make sure to spend it on that purpose, and then we would close that line item, and then eventually we could close the fund, and reflect that in the department receiving the grant.
Thank you.
Okay. So TIF 1, this is our largest TIF district by far. It does generate approximately 1.4 million in increment per year. 30% of that is distributed to the taxing bodies, which that leaves the city with about 980,000 in increment each year. The reason that 30% is distributed to the taxing bodies is because a TIF district has its original life of 23 years, and then you can do a 12-year extension. We are in the extension period of TIF 1, meaning that we had to get the blessing of our taxing bodies to continue this TIF. So we did that via an agreement that shares some of the surplus with them. This TIF does expire in 2033. We do have funds budgeted for City Hall, as Gary mentioned, to do tuck pointing, finish out window replacements, update the restrooms and address plumbing issues, and then update signage. Old buildings are expensive to take care of, but we do feel like it's important to chip away at it, and make sure that we are taking care of it. We anticipate about 6 facade grants in TIF 1, which have a cap of $10,000 each. We do have approximately $385,000 committed, this year for 8 development agreements covering 12 addresses. And then we do have room in the budget for an additional $266,000 in case anyone else would be interested in an agreement. Major infrastructure projects include replacement of the sidewalk along State Street by 415 North State. That won't be a typical sidewalk replacement. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to do that. Potential commercial demolitions and finishing out work on the Carnegie Building and 409 North State Street. That's the lot across the street. We do have to do that in a timely manner because a few years ago, the city did apply for a grant for that, and grants do have timelines, so that needs to be a key project, and we have made good headway on that. Any questions on TIF 1? No? Okay. So TIF 2, this is one of our smaller TIFs, but county EAB reports did reflect an increase within TIF 2 this year, so we estimate about $88,000. In the past, we were estimating about $60,000 in increments, so that's a great increase for a TIF of this size. This TIF expires in 2032. We budgeted 2 $10,000 facade grants, and we do have a development agreement commitment of $29,000 for this fiscal year, and then we budgeted an extra $31,000 in case there would be another agreement. Any questions on TIF 2? Okay. Let's see, TIF 3. So once again, this is one of our smaller TIFs, but it did show good growth this year on the county EAB reports. This TIF is expected to generate approximately $66,000 in property taxes, no agreements with taxing bodies. It also expires in 2032. There are no ongoing expenditures currently. The budget is for 2 facade grants, and then we do have about $67,000 for an existing development agreement, and then we did budget $10,000 additional for an agreement should a project arise. Any questions on 3? Okay. TIF 4, so this is our newly adopted TIF that was designed to assist with infrastructure costs on the residential subdivision. So we were just at the beginning of the life of this TIF. As planned, $1.2 million is being transferred through the general fund, and then that will be paid back via increment over time. So the general fund would be paid back for what we're transferring in. The developer incentives total $1.6 million. And then the school districts are entitled to funding for new students and residential TIFs. That's in state statute, so we are actively working with the school district on an agreement. And that'll be brought forward within the next couple of months. Any questions on TIF 4? Okay. Next is the Business District Fund. So this is one of our new funds. It was exciting last year to track the fund balance and see what that fund would bring in. It is anticipated to bring in $1.7 million this year, which is great. Last year was the first full year for the fund and is projected to bring in about $1.6 million. We don't have any business assistance programs established yet or major infrastructure projects identified. That's because we want the fund to be able to build up for a while TIF 1 is still in place and well-funded. We do have one existing agreement for $88,000 this year because it was not part of a TIF district. And then we also have budgeted funds for potential commercial demolitions. Any questions on the business district? Okay. Next, it looks like IDOT maintenance shed. That one, this project has come to a close, so I believe we'll be closing it out next year, correct? Yep. Next is long-term economic development fund. So the major project fund for this fund this year is a transfer to TIF 4 for a residential subdivision, which I mentioned in the TIF 4 budget. and then a transfer to the bond fund for the West Side Industrial Park bond payment. We do have an agreement with a local dealership, that we budgeted $40,000 per year for. That's a pre-existing agreement that does not fall into any of our incentive districts, so it is paid out of the general fund. Any questions on long-term economic development? No? Okay. Next is the police seizure fund. It doesn't look like there's activity in that fund.
No, and we don't really budget any revenues, cause we never know quite when we would get these funds. And then the spending occurs when we get the funds and have them available for spending. For and fire, this is the 2% tax, that we get on fire insurance, and then that can be spent on certain public safety equipment. There's no budget for that this year. If anything does come up, we'll do a budget amendment for that.
Next is the lake subdivision fund. So for this fund, the expenditures this year are, redoing some of the roads out there that, are not in the best shape that, we have had a couple people looking at the subdivision comments on, so we wanna make sure that, they're redone properly, and that they'll have a useful, lifetime to them, so that is the major expense this year. Since listing the subdivision with a realtor, we have had some pretty good traction on the lots. A lot of the big waterfront lots are now taken, and it's exciting to see those homes go up. Any questions on the lake subdivision fund? Okay. And last is the city loan fund. So we actually just received our last payment from WorkSaver. I believe we'll actually receive it in May, yeah. And then that loan is closed out. That was a pre-existing loan, that we gave to WorkSaver for them to, expand their facilities, I believe. That loan will be closed out in May. We don't have any other existing loans, so we will work on closing out this fund, after that's settled.
And we did transfer some of the fund balance out to the general fund in 2026, cause the general fund originally made the loan to this fund to fund the loan program. So whatever's left in this fund, they're transferred to the general fund. The next section is, debt service funds, and we have one debt service fund, that's the West Side Bond Fund. That does get the transfer from the long-term economic development fund to fund the bond, the principal and interest. So that is something that we'll have to think about next year, cause the long-term economic development fund doesn't have sufficient fund balance, so we'll have to think about that next year. Capital improvement fund is the next page. This is the fund that really includes all of these street type projects that we are undertaking that are included in that $19 million capital plan that we looked at earlier. Revenue sources for this fund are the capital sales tax, which is your non-home rule sales tax, as well as any grant receipts related to the specific projects. So the $5.4 million that you see there are the street related projects that are on the CIP list.
Thank you. Now we will jump over to our enterprise fund. Christie, would you present the water fund?
Yes. All right, thank you very much for having me. It's my first time here, so I'm excited. Just looking at overall from the total revenue of close to $7 million this year in the water fund, to our total expenditures, even though there is a negative position, at the end of the day, based on what we have carryover, we're still in a positive. One of our, obviously our largest line item is personnel. Something we did wanna note is with the RFP out for contracting that out, that particular section under personnel services, in theory, could be zeroed out depending upon how that ends up working out, which would then be turned over and roll into the fees, down into the contractual services portion, where those dollars would be rolled down into that. A couple of the changes, one thing to note, the engineering line item under contractual is significantly higher for next year, and that goes into basically the design aspects that are gonna need to be done getting ready for the big project that we're gonna do in 2027. So I did wanna call that out. Other than that, We do continue to have some capital investment dollars in there to cover some of the maintenance items that are going to continue to come up at the water plant until we do actually get a chance to get the opportunity to do that big project. So those are kind of addressed in that capital plan. There's, as far as larger items, there's some maintenance to the membrane system, and there also is, I would say more of a general pot of money to handle the miscellaneous maintenance items that are gonna be coming up throughout the year, whether they're pump repairs, small chemical pump replacements, but basically making sure that we have some money budgeted to cover those things until we can get to that larger project that will cover kind of that big picture, those big picture items. And that really kind of is an overall synopsis, and I'm available to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thanks. And I would note, we do still have a rate study in the works. We plan to bring that to the council in May. So we will need to do a quarter one amendment to this budget, based on the council's decision on that rate study. Project costs, although most of them will be rolled into an IMPA loan, may fluctuate some. You will continue to see higher maintenance costs in this budget, because what we don't want to do is fall behind on repairs and maintenance, because we all know that results in a lot of emergency expenditures and major costs down the road. So, those maintenance costs will continue to remain higher. Okay, any questions on water? And then sewer, I think, John and Bill will just present that. Perfect.
If you don't mind, I wanna take a minute and back up on the water, just to add some more information on the distribution. Currently, we have one large water project going on the west side of the railroad tracks. It's a $1.8 million job, where we have received, 1.5 million from a grant. We got another one that's getting ready to get started in the next few months on the east side. We're gonna be running the new water line up, Route 16 coming into town for the water plant. And also rerouting a 8-inch water line going around to the east side of the lake that serves, EJ Water, Butler, and, Evergreen Farms. That project is a $2.2 million project, which we received a grant for, and to cover that cost. We have the water tower cleaning, with both water towers. We're getting prices right now to get that done, so that'll help with the, cleaning of the water, and hopefully that'll increase the, less complaints of the water that we have received in the past, so that'll be a big improvement too. On with the sewer, anybody have any questions about the distribution of the water? Okay, on with the sewer, as you know, we have had some major issues with our sewer plant, getting to the end of its, extended life, basically. We got about $23 million of improvements that we need to do down there. We're gonna be taking that in steps, over the next several years. A couple of million this year, a couple million next year, and we just don't have the room down there to build a whole new sewer plant, as it takes up a lot of acreage to do that, so we'll be doing it in steps, like new clarifiers at one time, and new press building at a different time, and the new digesters, doing it in stages, so we can conserve on our footprint at the, location down there. collection system. We're still working on, ideas to separate the, storm water from the domestic sewer water. As we have talked about before, that's gonna be a multi-year project, probably 20 or 30-year project, once that gets started. Just the cost involved in that is astronomical. We have been noticing lately, with the heavier rains that we have gotten in the past several months, we had a sewer collapse over on Van Buren Street. Several of you may have seen where we have been doing some work over there. Our own public works crew was able to make the repairs and get that all sealed up. We found, another sewer collapse uptown at Union and State Street that we gotta address here in the next few weeks. But, we're probably gonna have to hire a contractor for that, just due to the location of the traffic, and we're gonna have to set up some cages, just to be able to get it done in a timely, amount of time, so it's not stretched out, over several days, so. But, we're making progress on the sewer department. John, you have anything else you wanna add?
Maybe, just a slight correction, Bill. We're not gonna be replacing what is in existence right now. We're gonna eliminate a couple of things like the primary clarifiers, and then it's mostly gonna be rebuilding what we have with newer equipment, updating the motors, the pumps, and things like that. We're not gonna put new digesters in or anything like that. I'm not sure if you were privy to the plan or not, but, typically that would be what would happen, but we're at the end of the equipment life cycle and needs to be, upgraded and modernized and get more efficient equipment.
And Christie, would you like to, so I know we don't have we'll have to do a Q1 budget amendment for, the engineering services for planning, for the loan submittal. Would you kind of give us an insight into what that planning process looks like? And then, should we receive the loan, what the project timeline would look like?
Perfect. So yeah, and again, a little bit of clarification. It's not gonna be phased, and the reason it's not gonna be phased is to get the money, it's a competitive process. So basically, so we have the planning is done, then planning is approved, which we needed approval by March 31st in order to be able to get money set aside for us, and it is competitive. But again, I do believe we have a very good shot at getting money set aside. Otherwise, we will go for the bypass money. So the schedule on that is, we commence design, we have to be ready to use the money. The money will come available starting July 1st if we're on the intended use set aside piece. And we have to, which obviously we're not ready to do yet, but we have to be ready to go out to bid, into January, into February, because the state fiscal year ends the end of June. And there is a process, you go out to bid, you have to have all your construction permits in hand. You go out to bid, it has to stay open for bidding for 45 days. And then you take those bids, you then turn around and we then submit all that information to the state, they review it, we turn it around. That's usually another 4 to 6 weeks. So again, and all those things have to happen and be in place so that loan is executed no later than June the 31st. So that's kind of that wall that we're up against on schedule, which, as I mentioned, is why we will be coming back with that contract. But I think the key thing to remember is that if we get on the intended use, in particular, intended use is where you get the principal forgiveness piece of it. And principal forgiveness is basically in EPA speak, the equivalent of grant money, which is really what we're going for. wanna be able to get some of that overall cost in the forgiveness piece. And the forgiveness is a calculation that's based upon median household income, where the city of Litchfield stands compared to the state average. Obviously, we're in a good place to qualify for that principal forgiveness. So basically, it's a matter of getting all of our ducks in a row, getting a scoring criteria that's high enough to get us on the intended use and get those funds set aside for us. But then, on the other hand, having the design done and being ready to go within that fiscal year cycle. So that's kind of where I'm at, of trying to make sure that we're thinking in terms of backing up from June the 30th and making sure that we have time to make this thing happen when we get on that list. Because we don't wanna lose that principal forgiveness. If you get on that intended use list and you have that principal forgiveness, if you don't use it, there is no guarantee the next year that you're gonna score the same, because you're competing against different projects the following year. So again, readiness is a really important piece on this. Similar when we get ready to go for the water loan, again, it's all about readiness. We can do our work, I mean, we can get it all ready, but we have to be ready to go once those lists are announced. And it's a big project, I won't lie to you, so the design is gonna take a while. Actually, we talked about, going ahead and getting the surveying started, so that we're ready to hit the ground running and get these things going. It's kind of a combination of retrofit rehabilitation with a new operations building. You have questions?
Well, I was gonna ask him a question.
Oh, perfect.
So, and instead of I think he said he was gonna talk about replacing the entire unit clarifier.
Mhm.
You're talking about not replacing the entire unit and replacing internal components, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, now, if the equipment's served its life, term, is there an astronomical difference financially?
Can I help you with this one?
Sure.
So at a wastewater plant, there's a lot of tanks, obviously, right? Because you're bringing the water in and it's either going through a channel or it's in a big tank. In a water plant, you have lots of steel structures. In a wastewater plant, everything is concrete because the wastewater is corrosive. The structures have like a 50 to 100-year life expectancy. It's the mechanical components that have that 20-year life expectancy. So when we go in and we look at doing these things, the idea is the most economical infrastructure that you have is what you've already used and paid for. So for example, they have something called an oxidation ditch that is their activated sludge process. We're not gonna replace the structural aspects of that, but we are gonna go in and replace all of the mechanical pieces and get those modernized, put on the SCADA system and brought up to code. Similar to some other processes out there, we really wanna make sure that we're optimizing the reuse of structures that have a much longer life expectancy, and then replacing the mechanical components, kind of a do-over to start that 20-year life cycle all over again. I won't lie to you, there's some of them that aren't necessarily reusable. So those we're gonna build new, and we're gonna put new equipment in, but we have in our study tried to optimize the places that we can reuse that infrastructure that's got some life left to it, and then replace those mechanical components. That's really how we got to a $22 million project. If you started from scratch, it would be significantly more money, because you have to build all those concrete structures as well.
And I will add, any buildings, like there are some buildings in rough shape out there, any structures that are beyond their useful life will go.
Yes.
So it's only like the concrete basins, the structures that still have much further to go that are being preserved.
And
But anything that needs to go, will.
Yeah, and actually, and you should actually go out and go to the plant and see it. There's actually one structure that's kind of in a hillside that really probably should have been demoed in the last project, but because of everybody wants to save costs, wasn't. And so we're actually looking at making sure we take care of that, get that taken care of, and claim that space on the plant.
I just, like, I know we're on sewer, but water ties into that, and we're about to get this dreaded, water study. And so I wanna make sure that financially we're being
Okay.
responsible, because, it's just important, right? That, I don't know about the past, I don't know what could've been done, it doesn't really matter what was done,
Correct.
what's done is done, we're here now. And I just wanna make sure we're being financially responsible moving forward for the public.
On the water side, we actually have a great advantage, because the project that we're gonna do, by the time it is constructed, the loan for the existing plant, the original plant, is actually gonna be falling off. So they're actually, it's the best of all scenarios. So there will be a payment that drops off and another payment that picks up. So you're not gonna have to basically be compounding that. And that'll show up in the rate study. On the wastewater side, we aren't as fortunate, just because of the way it all worked out. And the other half of it is and this is completely off topic, but, the water side has not seen the regulatory changes that the wastewater side has, which is really what's driving the cost up on the wastewater side. There are things that are end of useful life, but there are also new regulatory requirements that they have to hit. And so that also drives that cost up. From my perspective as a water wastewater engineer, really probably for the last 15 to 20 years, the work has all been on the wastewater side because it's all being regulatory driven. Whereas the water side hasn't seen, we may see soon with PFAS and some other things, but they just haven't had the regulatory changes that have required people to go in and make substantial changes to the treatment processes. Wastewater, completely different story. You're talking about having to remove nutrients that you didn't have to do before. And so it is a cost driver, and that's part of why the SRF loan is out there, is to try to help with those costs.
And I would highly recommend for all the council members who have not been out to the sewer plant, to go out there and go on a tour, get with John. He will walk you through like he did me, and once you get done with that tour, you'll understand why this needs to be replaced. You will.
Anytime, just give me a call.
Thank you. Any additional questions for sewer? No? Okay. Any general budget questions? Okay, so this will, have a public hearing, next meeting, April 16th, and then, the council will vote on the budget. So if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to let me know. For any members of the public, it is available on our website. We also have copies at City Hall if you would like to take a look. Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? We'll need, it looks like a motion to go into executive session.
And that is under the discussion of minutes, 5 ILCS 122-2C21, and collective negotiating matters between the public and employees or their representatives, 5 ILCS 122C.
So that was the first, do we have a second? Okay, Councilman second. Roll call, Kellenberger.
Aye.
Holloway.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Sisson. Zumwalt.